I guess my story that has brought me to sit in this chair is of one overcoming, accepting, and living with anxiety and depression, and to know that you are not your sickness, and to understand and find ways, meaningful ways, to manage such, heavy issue of one's mental health. I think it's more telling for the fact that quite often we associate depression or anxiety to a experience of anxiety, of distress, or when facing challenges. It's always at an intersection of one finding themselves in a discomfortable position, whether brought by various factors: loss of job, breakups, having challenges, emotional challenges relating to others, money, and so forth. We always externalize the effect of depression or mental health in its broader spectrum. And only when I had experienced my deepest experience of it last year was when I was reaching my highs in terms of my career, being in a space of good health, I thought, when my life was going so well, oh gosh, tripping on myself right now. The chip,
Trajectory.
yeah, it's fine. I would say where I was in a great space, and there wasn't any reason to find myself in a dark hole, the rabbit's hole, but I did. And only then I realized that the manifestation of it was a physiological imbalance, a chemical imbalance, as opposed to external factors, or personalizing it to my own doing. I think it was a wake-up call, you know. I think, and it's a story that's never told, of when one is achieving, one is in a space of greatness, I would say, in their life, I would think, that you can still find yourself falling in the rabbit's hole. And then the question is, what are the tools to help you in that space? So, to give you a context and a background to my story with mental health, it's one that I had known since I was 17, 18, I think. And when it manifested, it was due to grief, delayed grief of my dad's father, the death of my father, who passed away at 12, and various members of my family who passed away just about the same in the duration of 5 years, both from my paternal and my maternal family. And during that time, I had closed off emotionally to face up with the loss. I was able to push through, but only for the grief to come back when I was in my first year, 17, 18. So when it occurred, the first time I had experienced depression, I thought it was because there were emotions I hadn't dealt with, past experiences that are now sort of yeah, it's heavy. What you never deal with comes back sooner or later, so it was easy for me to articulate the depression I was experiencing to that fact. And then only to find myself again over time in my 20s in a depressive mode. And then thereafter, this will be about 3 months, and it would be such a deep hole that it manifests itself in a physiological sickness. I'll be bounded. I would get sick, bounded in my bed for days, loss of appetite, disinterest to whatever that made me happy, disengaging from family members, friends, cutting off everyone, just being in the dark space. This would happen over 3 months or sometimes 6 months, depending. And then I would find ways on how to work through it. And obviously, during that time, thoughts of suicide would come. But somehow, I guess I always had a sense of awareness, even though it was not well trained. I would convince myself that that route is not worth it, even though the fight to live was actually harder. It would have been easy at any point in time to just end it. I always had a struggle to keep myself alive. But somehow I found the strength. I guess my spirituality is, at its core, is quite integral to who I am, and it's what has carried me through, and understanding life and understanding my experiences and what I'm going through, and to also having times of not being able to articulate what's going on, and having a challenge of not being able to relay what I'm going through with the next person. Since I close up, I was able to reach out to a higher power from what I believe in, God, and not God in Christianity, but just God in the universal sense, in above and beyond religion, to the source. Because for me, I find that God is an entity that is encompassed in all these religions, but is above that. In any case, I guess that is my point of liberation and salvation from that dark space. And then I will have about 6 months to a year of building myself up. And during that time, still closed off from the world. This is where I would work out, eat healthy, and I would literally it's as if I'm building myself over again. And during that time, everything is going well. I'm emotionally in a good state, mentally in a good space. And when I feel I have done enough, then I'm able to come out and engage with the world. But the issue that arose from that is that quite often, when I do come back and engage with the world, there's a lot that I've missed out, and my friends during that time didn't know where I was, and I also wasn't there for them. So it was quite easy in my 20s to attribute my depression, which actually became anxiety and depression, sort of closely linked to bipolar, which I found out recently it's actually cyclic bipolar. I hate using words to define things, but we as humans make sense and logic through words, and we find meaning in defining things. So I'm learning to accept, the language that comes and the limitations that comes with language. of mental health. Um, so throughout my 20s, I always attributed my ill health to external factors: drinking, partying, heartbreak, loss of friends, or whatever. So it was quite easy to think that was the main issue. And when I did eventually see a psychiatrist, I was initially diagnosed with clinical depression. And over time, I was I was on the meds for 2 years, but they were quite heavy on me. I couldn't think. I was literally flat, emotionally, mentally, and so I discontinued taking medication, and I found other alternative ways to cope, which was for me meditation, yoga, eating healthy, um, awareness, I guess, being self-aware and understanding myself physically and mentally, and learning of my trigger points, what could add or push me towards, falling into that dark hole. But last year was a very significant, a very important, a very revealing, actually, um, experience I had, revealing and understanding this thing, this mental health, is that it was never, it at its core, it was nothing but a chemical dysfunction in the body. For it, quite often, I would think that I was the cause of my sickness, and I would take blame and shame, and quite often I would try to hide it. And society as well adds to that. You know, one who faces, challenges mentally, they tend to be viewed less than human. They tend to, yeah, a loss of self, I guess, quite often. Sense of, yeah, as if you don't measure up, as if there's something wrong with you, as if it's your fault, as if you are to blame. And then also in the black community, it's even far worse, because mental health is not something that is understood. It's not something that, there's no language for it. Quite often it is resided in space of one being moody, or witchcraft, or it's a white man's thing. And so those are the complexities of one living with mental health. And then there's also issues of accessibility to help and understanding, from family to the community, to access to medical help and any other support group that you might need. And luckily, I would say I'm privileged to come from a space of having. So I was able to access medical help through psychiatry, recently psychologist, and just having a network of people around me. I guess what's most important is understanding that I am not my sickness, and to understand that it is something that you're born with. DNA, it's hereditary. You It's a lifetime thing. You live with it, but it doesn't define me. And even though I was adverse to medication, and even though I pursued an alternative lifestyle and being proactive with my health, putting safety measures such as working out, eating healthy, just ensuring that I'm in a good, safe space, checking in with my emotions, checking in with my mental health, and being in a space of awareness. I think meditation has taught me that, being aware, self-knowledge, you know, self-understanding. Reflection requires you to do the work, to self-reflect, self-analyze, but to do so without guilt tripping yourself, without shaming yourself, to understand that this is only an issue with your body. And to a point now, I'm still using all those tools that I've acquired over time, but now I've also accepted to incorporate, the use of medicine, Western medicine, pharmaceutical medicine. And luckily with the psychiatrist I'm with, I made it clear that I'd want medication that, first of all, that is as close to being natural, and that does not inhibit or become a hindrance to my selfhood, my intellectual capacity, and my creativity, because I'm an artist. I work with art. And I need to engage with my mind. And it has to be said, it's quite a cliche that they say that, as an artist, as a creative, it's something that we experience, it's part of our DNA. But for me, weirdly enough, depression came before my artistic, well, I guess I was always artistic, but my artistic awareness and practice. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't relate it to my, to my creativity being the issue or adding to it.